he's doing the right things. He's going to tell us some really good stuff. We've also got some South Florida, West Palm Beach legends here. Derrick McCray with McCray's Barbecue. His dad was in the game. Derrick is in the game, and he brought Dan Calloway along, who's just got a wealth of information out there fighting the good fight. It's going to give some amazing perspective here, and you're going to learn a lot about West Palm Beach and just how things are set up. And there's an amazing story that Derrick is going to share a little bit about kind of the origins of Palm Beach and West Palm Beach and why we got some people where we do. And then I also want to welcome in Patrick Franklin. He's the CEO of the Urban League of Palm Beach County, who is going to come in here and give us some really great perspective. And then ultimately, too, Patrick, I can't wait to talk to you just because I know people want to get involved. And I think a lot of people feel helpless and they're watching their TV and there's a lot of emotions going on and people are frustrated and they're like, what can I do?
Absolutely. Thank you, Calvin, for having us on today.
Yeah, and Patrick's going to give us a lot of great solution stuff. I would really like to just kind of jump in here because, I think what it is, and the point of me doing this is, being a kid that grew up in Southeastern Ohio in a very white-based culture, I did not have the kind of diversity that I think a lot of people really should have. And I think there are people that might be in my shoes that would like to learn and they don't know where to turn. And that's why we started the conversation last week. And I just want to kind of continue it on. And so anybody who is coming at this from a place where I am, like I said today, if you just open your ears and open your heart and you just want to try to understand and you come at this with some empathy, the more I learn, the more amazed I am and the more I want to get into this and I want to learn. And I think history is a big part of this. And just this last week, there's a lot of stuff that has come up that I was never aware of. And I think, especially this week in the news, there was a lot of things about Confederate monuments and Confederate generals' names on bases. We've had it in South Florida with renaming some streets, and even the Dixie Highway and things like that have come up. And I think for a lot of white Americans, and I have family that's based in the Southeast, without fully understanding what that means to the Black community and the history that is tied into that, you can't fully grasp what that argument is all about. And today is really a monumental day as well. Today is called National Loving Day. I mentioned this briefly on the KBJ show today, that it marks the day in 1958 that the Supreme Court ruled that Richard and Mildred Loving could legally marry. Mm-hmm. It was a Black and a white couple, and legally until 1958, you could not do that in Virginia and several other states. To think that the state would tell you who you could love and who you could marry. And coincidentally, their last name was Loving. And so today is National Loving Day. And that's just another piece of history that I think people need to know and understand, because in some ways, 1958 seems like a long time ago, but in other ways, 1958 just isn't long enough that has been a ruling. And that's why I think, understanding some of these stories and where our history was not that long ago and where our country is today is a good thing to understand. I want to bring in Derrick McCray first and Dan Calloway here just to talk a little bit about it, because I think it is important to understand some of the history about this. And Derrick, for me, I think you can elaborate on this. I was really stunned to find out and read the story of how Palm Beach became Palm Beach. And I hadn't lived in South Florida very long when I was driving a friend from up north around, and he said, why is there just such a drastic change in a socioeconomic level from Palm Beach to crossing the bridge? He said, I would not have expected that. He said, why is that? And I said, I don't really know. Mm-hmm. And there is a historical perspective to all of that. I did not even realize that apparently, Derrick, at one point, Palm Beach, which actually was where a lot of the servants lived that were taking care of the flagglers and the such. And there was kind of a party and a switcheroo that happened that gives West Palm Beach a very inauspicious history when it comes to race. Derrick, can you shed any light on that story?
Yeah. I think we was talking about when my great-great-grandfather, Captain Jack Williams, was the steamboat captain for President Harding. And he knew how to navigate these waters here in South Florida because it was still pretty much untamed during that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he had commissioned him to bring Flagler here to South Florida to kind of see what was going on, because they kind of knew that this could be a resort retirement area, and he brought him down, and that's how Palm Beach kind of started, and it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit how they did the switcheroo, and Palm Beach was known as the Sticks during that time. All the black folks and Indians, Seminole Indians, they had them over on Palm Beach, separate from the mainland. So I think when Flagler and those guys got here, they said, well, you guys got it messed up. The value is over on the island, not here. And so that's when they kind of put together a party and tricked all the black folks and the people to come over to the mainland, and they burned up the Sticks. They burned up their homes, and they took the homes, almost like what they did in Tulsa. Mm-hmm. The same type of thing. Burnt the people up, killed them, took the land, and made it the island of Palm Beach, and sent all the servants and all the lay people over the West Palm. That's why, if you ever notice, the lay of West Palm Beach is that you notice on the far east side of West Palm Beach is where all the black folks stay, Pleasant City. Yeah. And that area is where they congregated the black folks, and then all the white folks went over to the island, and they developed the island, and they had the railroad to come across to get supplies back and forth during that time. So, wow. Yeah, so it's always been some atrocities and some things that happened that was crazy back then that we just kind of sweep up under the rug now, that really needs to pull the rug back and see, some things that happened many, many years ago. But
Derrick, I think what you're hitting on, and you referenced Tulsa in there, and a lot of these stories for me have just come to light in the last year, where I've really tried to dig a little bit deeper. And you keep hearing 401 years of all this frustration that is built up. And you have to recognize, for me, and I think it's a lot of different places too, that this has not been taught in our classes and in our schools. Some of these stories, the story about what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I did not even know until I was watching a show on HBO called The Watchers. And they were focusing on Tulsa, Oklahoma, and this race riot that happened in 1921. And I thought it was made
Greenwood.
up. I thought it was made up for that show.
No,
I did not hear about it. And I didn't know. And so when I looked deeper into what had happened there, and it was known as the Black Wall Street for people.
That's right.
Right.
Very affluent.
Yeah,
it was all African American in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And again, another one of those, somebody accused somebody wrongfully, and then a race riot breaks out. They're dropping bombs, the death toll, up to 300 African Americans lose their life on that. And the thing that when I looked into that story, I couldn't believe, that is a story that has not been taught in Oklahoma state schools until the year 2020. I could not even believe that is something that they just now start teaching even in Oklahoma state.
Well,
schools.
Kevin, you hit on the focal point right here when you said taught and educated. None of our history has been taught and educated in the way that others outside of Derrick and his family and other black families and other people that we transfer these stories back and forth, but it's not being taught to the majority, and they don't understand why the issue is what it is, and they don't know the history and won't take the history as what it is. They don't accept it. They're in denial. And we're going to talk about denial as we go through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple different stories to look into. One thing I talked about on the regular show today, another stunning story that happened right here in the state of Florida, is the story of what happened in Rosewood.
Rosewood. Yeah. Same thing.
Same exact. It's a carbon copy of basically what happened in Tulsa.
Yes.
Except it happens, right here in Florida. And I think that, being in Florida, and that's what this is about, I think that people here in this state have got to realize the racist past of this state. And Florida was the third state to secede from the Union back during the Civil War. And there were slaves clearly that were here. And then even after the Civil War, this was a prominent place. When I looked into the story of Rosewood, look it up. It is a story about a town that was wiped off the map. Again, one of those accusations of a white woman said that falsely that she was beaten by an African American, and that starts a whole week of rampage where as many as 140 African Americans were killed, wiping the entire town, burning their homes, wiping it off the map. And I had seen something interesting too, that from 1877 to 1950, Alachua County, right in that area, had the largest sheer volume of lynchings of any community in the entire nation.
That's right. That's right.
When you look at those numbers, and this is a history that is a white person who's lived in Florida for 20 years, I just discovered all this stuff looking on my own this last week. And that's too bad that that's not something that is commonly talked about and is basic information. In fact, I saw that Robbie Morton, she was the last known survivor, and she passed away in Riviera Beach at the age of 94 in 2010 of Rosewood.
That's right. I remember when we did the big celebration for her here and when she passed and whatnot.
I grew up with her daughters.
And Miss Calloway grew up with her daughters. But just even with the story that sticks, see, we got to go back to the root of the problem. That's what Patrick and I and Ms. Cal was talking about, you know, from when we first got here. You know, all of our history, like America's never taught African history, that we came from a land, not the jungle, but the forest. And that Black folks was a harmonious people. We wasn't a violent people. We only became more violent as we learned violence. We only became a lot of the evil came once we learned it. But when we came here, we was more submissive. And people don't tell a story about how many African Americans died on their way here. They need to even know that story, that coming in chains and people getting sick, not enough food, ships going down. So it's millions of people that even make it that died on that death row here. So we got to talk about those things first of all, that, you know, and even some of our people, just like now, you got some people that sell out. We had some of our own people that sell us too. Yeah. And sell us, not a lot, but a few sold us, and then a lot of them just captured and taken and brought here to build America. You know what I mean? And the story that I heard, I think it was Jamestown. Well, they sent back to the Queen of England when they sent them here to develop the land, that they didn't have enough help. So they needed some free labor. So once they made the proclamation that that Black folks was not equal, once they got here, they erased our identity as soon as we got here, to know that you will never be as equal as a white person. Your job is just to be here to work, free labor, and it was passed on from that time, and the laws just strengthened and strengthened and strengthened, and it became an institution with white Americans. You know what I mean? The white people here, that they thought that it was. That's how it was supposed to be. And it just started with a few Black folks, and they created a tsunami of people coming in, and the laws just strengthened back then. So we had to go back and talk about that and get some repentance. That's what I was telling everybody. If America kind of repent for some of the sins that they committed, I think that most African American people can accept that and start the conversation. See, it's hard to start a conversation without a formal apology. Then the reconciliation starts. So we need to go back and talk about that. Then the next part of that piece is the reparations. Now, the Jews got reparations from when Hitler did what he did to them, but African Americans never got reparations. They never got treated fairly once they was released from bondage. It always came down to the Jim Crowism. That started after that. So once we look at these issues and talk about each one in their phases, how we get to where we're at now to build up to the future, to where the bubble is burst now. Yeah. Now I think that's where the healing process comes in at. And then that's where the great Patrick Franklin's and Reggie D and all those guys could take us forward in the future on how we set this up for the actual forums, the talking, the discussions, and the actual plan of action from this point on.
And, you know, Derrick, I think the one thing, you know, because you started with step one being the formal apology. And from the white perspective, I would say for me, step one is truly understanding. And I don't know that white America yet has the understanding. And I think when
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think when you get the understanding, then you will say, okay, I start to understand it now. And there were so many things, even the discussion about the Confederate monuments and the names being on the bases. I was born at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and my family is predominantly from the South. We're poor farmers. We were not slave owners. And as I grew up and learned about Southern culture and heritage and all that stuff, the one thing that I did in studying the Civil War was, and especially the place where I was born in my birthright, I discovered that Braxton Bragg, the general from the Confederacy, was a terrible general. Yeah. And I could not understand why this guy who failed every battle he was in got his own base. And then it really wasn't until I started digging deeper here recently to understand that these Confederate monuments and these Confederate bases that were put up was really just a part of submission to kind of be a constant reminder to African Americans in the South that, hey, just so you guys know, we want to make sure that you understand what your place is. And so we're going to plot a monument here so that you guys do not forget. And a lot of people don't realize there are still 700 current standing Confederate monuments in America today.
Right. Kevin, you understand the process. And it was not back to the 20s and the 30s that white politicians put their thumb down on Black Americans and said, you will always remember this because we're going to put it out there in a monument size and make sure you understand and see it each and every day of your life, the oppression that we're not going to let you escape from. But Kevin, I want to go back to what you said earlier. You took the time to educate yourself on the issue. You took your time to go back and read, research, and understand. What if every white American took just a little space, a little bit of their time, turn the TV off, turn on their computer, and look up Black history and understand it the way you did, and then follow the path that it leads you down to understand, oh my God, I did not know all this happened and why. And when you look back at why politicians put up all these monuments across the South to remind us of oppression, why do you think in this day and time that Germany will allow the Nazi flag to be flown everywhere that they want to? Hell no. Right. But we allow the Confederate flag to be flown anywhere you want to, whatever. And this was an act of treason that they rose up against the United States to say, we want to keep our slaves and keep our economy the way it is, leave us alone. And we're going to retaliate against you to do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I grew up in the South in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I went to my high school. I graduated from Robert E. Lee Senior High School in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We had the rebel flag as our mascot. Okay. I was the last football team to have a rebel flag on my jersey. And that was 1976. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Not that long ago. I just read the Baton Rouge paper yesterday that they were trying to even take the name off the high school, which I applaud. Okay. Yeah. But the signals and the absolute continuous reparations of this is who you are, we're going to keep you in that mode, has to change. Mm-hmm. Right. Because the Confederate flag and all that the Confederacy stands for is the direct slap in the face of every Black American in this country. Well, it's a slap in the face to our ancestors. It's a slap in the face to our children, especially if they understand the reason why it was done and why people are fighting to keep it in place right now.
Well, to your point, the Confederacy was beaten by the Union. I think everybody knows that, but the Confederacy really did live on in spirit. The Confederacy wasn't dead after the Civil War.
No, not at all. Jim Crow took his place.
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people see it that way and understand. And really, a big part of it and understanding the Confederacy did predominantly stand for slavery. It stood for their economic cycle that they wanted to maintain. And that's what people fought for. And that really was the sole reason of the Civil War.
But Kevin, look, we went through we went through Jim Crow. Now we're in Jim Crow Esquire. Okay, Jim Crow Esquire. That means those with a shirt and tie and a suit on. That's Jim Crow today. Okay.
Yeah.
Can I also add to this too? Can I from a quick breakdown of it. Let's go back to Greenwood, which is actually Tulsa. Back in slavery, everybody. Yeah.
Rosewood.
No, I'm going back to Green. I'm going back
Greenwood.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going back to Greenwood and Tulsa. And when the proclamation was clear to where slavery ended, of course, it took a while, like maybe 2 or 3 years for it to get to Texas. So when it got to Texas, slavery was underneath General Lee. So everybody knows General Lee. So coming from Texas, I'm from Texas, the history is in the books, but the history don't tell you all those fine details that our ancestors taught us as we grew up. So nobody also knows that there was a point to where slavery was being helped and supported, but protected when we were to cross over to the borders of Mexico. Mexicans fought and helped protect us from the bounties from the white man that would send the bounties out to capture slaves. So there's a relationship from Texans and natives and Mexicans that nobody knows about. The Mexicans did support and protect some of the blacks. And the slavery came from, of course, underneath Robert E. Lee. And when it comes to the fact that they burnt down Greenwood and Tulsa, it's because once you understood that once we became free, and we had our own things because we had our own carpenters, our own skills, our own farmers, our own laborers, because we had done it for free. And now we started to do it for ourselves. So therefore, not being able to work for them, they got mad at us. So basically, they came and just bombed and took everything from us. And they've been sweeping everything underneath the rug ever since.
Yeah.
Right.
These are all really important things that every American needs to know. And I think for a lot of white people, they need to understand. I myself, this next Friday, a week from today, today's Loving Day, next Friday is Juneteenth. And for a lot of white Americans, they have no idea what Juneteenth is. And it is the national.
And that's what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's, and it really is. And I think that's why next Friday, everybody needs to start learning these kind of things. This is the nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery. And, a lot of people think that it all had to do with the Emancipation Proclamation, which, happened in 1863. But just because Lincoln made that, in the South, slavery was still thriving and going on. They didn't stop it. They didn't care what he had to say. It wasn't until 1865 on June 19th that Union soldiers finally got into Galveston, Texas, and said, hey, just so you know, there is no more slavery in this country and you're back in the Union. And so that really is when slavery ended. Not with the Emancipation Proclamation, but coming up on that June day on 19th of 1865. Right.
And the sad thing about it, I hate to be political, but I think Donald Trump should really not go there on that day and deliver a rally at that time, because this is a direct slap in the face of African American people, you know what I mean? And
that's what he's trying to do, though.
And that's what he's trying to do. And all that is
that's what he's trying to do.
Fire. He's stoking the fire.
It's called division, Derrick.
Right.
Division. He's dividing this country, continue to divide this country, and that's where we need to stand up and continue to stand up. Kevin, I've been advocating from the very beginning of all this process that we're going through is that we have to educate more people that don't look like us. Okay.
Right.
We have to educate them the best way we possibly can, and go look at movies and things that are coming out now that can give you some historical background, that can give you some context of what a black man went through, not even back 400 years ago, but look back the last 50 years. I mean, nothing's really changed that much.
Look back at George Floyd. It just happened 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
And then if you go back a little further, it was more intense. You know what I mean? It's intense now, but it was more intense in the 50s and the 40s and the 30s and the 20s for Black men. It was crazy.
But I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna tell you something else as well. And I hate to say it, the truth hurts. The Confederate, the police, some of these bad police and some of these bad good old boy police are the new Confederate to this day. And if you don't believe me, you can even attest that to white privilege when you say, as a simple question, why is it that white folks call the police on blacks? Because the police structure today is the same structure that's underneath like Robert E. Lee. There's a certain leadership that's amongst over slavery or black people that you can control from the power structure. And that's, to me, not all cops are bad, but some of these structures and these systems are set up through these good old boys. And that's made our new police stained as like our new Confederate.
I think that, one thing that people need to also understand is we had talked, extensively about slavery up until the Civil War, and watching a special, and I went and rewatched it this last week, called 13th. It's on Netflix.
13th, yes, very good show.
Yeah, understanding some of the highlights from that, it basically shows that when slavery ended, to imprison African Americans became the new form of slavery.
That's
and
right.
For people that don't know, then that really became the free labor, where we are then taking our prisoners and having them work chain gangs and for corporations and companies. And the prison population, there was a crime bill that was signed in 1994, and that was a Democrat to keep everything fair and balanced here.
Absolutely.
And that really militarized our police forces today. And the population of prisons has continued to rise. A couple stats just to even carve through. If you don't have time to watch 13th, just take this away. Black Americans make up a third of the U.S. prison population, despite only making up around an eighth of the country's total population. Only 1 in 17 white males in America will be incarcerated in their life. And for African Americans, it's 1 in 3. And Black men account for 6.5% of the population, but make up 40.2% of the prison population.
Right.
And the numbers right now are staggering.
And that's a form of institutionalized slavery. We knew that.
The Confederate structure.
And we knew that. And see, that's part of the power structure. And see, and also a house divided among itself can't stand. See, if you take the African American male out of the home, then what happens is what you see now, the chaotic thing that's going on in our community, because now you took away the head of the household. You got him incarcerated. Now you got the women trying to raise kids by themselves. Then it's a decay, a whole total structure decay that happens. Again, the way that Patrick said it is Jim Crow Esquire now. See, it's another form of institutionalized slavery that's been developed. And I think it's been studied, and they know these numbers.
Right.
See,
it's the Confederate way. That's the new Confederate way.
It also enhances the economic gap that keeps us oppressed, and everybody else is rising economically. Then the jump forward to now, why you think the COVID is attacking African Americans so much? Because of the mere fact that we don't have the money, we don't have the resources, we don't have the insurance, we don't have the certain things to keep us as healthy as white America. So we're being attacked viciously by this because of the form of oppression, the institutionalized slavery that's been going on for years. So these cycles have to be broken in order for the economic gap to even come down and be almost like an equal playing field, that everybody have the same rights and same equality and the same way to get the health care. So all that stuff, it goes back, and it's a lot of meat on this bone that needs to be dissected and eaten. It's like an elephant. You can't eat it all at one time. You got to go one bite at a time. It's a lot of stuff that we need to dissect and go through in the whole dynamics of what's going on here in America. Right. Order to straighten this web out.
Yeah, I just got something from you, Derrick, that I thought was great. What you're talking about, yes, with so many African American males, in prison. That really does. And I think I saw the stat that 70% of African-American children in America are raised without a father in the home.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, and most of them are latchkey kids. And Franklin and Patrick has it's been an amazing job with the Urban League trying to keep that together. That's one of the reasons for the Urban League is he's the supplemental family to a lot of these families that don't have fathers in the house.
Right. Patrick, talk to me about that.
So Kevin, look, we've lost a generation of young black males already, and we've gone into the second one. Okay, we've lost it. Go back into the imprisonment, but the imprisonment cycle is a system that feeds off itself. We've gone to now for-profit prisons that rely on laws that are passed by politicians who want to do a war on drugs and everything else, but they're going to pass laws that will support the prisons because they have to fill beds and put heads in prison. They're going to go to the most vulnerable, which are low-income communities, and round up those individuals that will get 3 to 5 years mandatory for little or nothing. Yeah. And they don't have the voice. They don't have the ability to bring legal lawyers in to support them. So they're in the system. So we're going to continue to make laws that will bring people into the system. We will continue to supply for-profit prisons with the head count they need to sustain themselves. So when you look at this whole process, it has many heads to it, but they're all in it together. And at the end of the day, if we don't reform this, we're going to have an issue. Derrick brought about the single parent mother. I would assume over my 18 and a half years at the Urban League, I made this analogy years ago, that almost 75% of the people I serve are single parent mothers with children.
That's right.
Over 75%. They're in my housing programs. They're in my youth and education programs. They're in my community programs. They're in my job prep programs. Why is that? There's no males in the household, basically. And we've seen this over and over and over again, because the head of our households are females right now. They're doing the best they can to hold it together. And then by the time their oldest child is 14, 15 years old, male probably, they're acting out. We got to try to support that mother to say, how do we keep how do we keep that young man in place? How do we keep him out of gangs? How do we keep him in school? How do we show them a better path towards ending their high school correctly and then going on to the next step? So the systems are in place not to help a Black family, but to keep it down at the level that they are, because what? It's all about power and control. Yeah. And if I can control that dynamics in every way I can, economically, as far as jobs, housing, health-wise, that's the biggest thing. That the health disparities are killing us. Mm-hmm. And we're doing it to ourselves in a way, but we're doing it because that's our confines right there. Mm-hmm. So we got to find ways to help these families prosper and sustain economically and health-wise.
Well, you talked just a second ago, Derrick, about we got an elephant here and there's a lot of meat on the bone. So my question, when you're looking at where we are today, and Patrick, I loved how you talked about the S-square part, because I do remember even a couple of years ago thinking that, hey, you know what, racial injustice is not that bad. I think America is pretty much even. Had no idea. But I think what you are saying, and it clicked to me, it is very undercover. It's more under disguise. There is lipstick on that pig. It's still a pig. And I think a lot of people are fooled because they look at it and think, hey, we're good, everything's even. And it's not, because we've never had a structure in America that was built right. So my question is, if there's so much meat on the bone and we got an elephant here, what's the first bite? What's the second bite? What's the third bite? Where do you start eating this elephant?
I think the first bite, I think Patrick and Mr. Calloway and Reggie D said it first. First of all, my thing was repentance, but before you can repent, you need to be educated. I think the education on what is happening, how it happened, and understand how we got here and the inhumane treatment that we went through getting here. First of all, you gotta know, well, shit, I didn't know that happened. I wasn't here, that was my forefathers, but we don't always know the stories of our forefathers. So we need to go back, and start with the education. First, y'all need to look at this, and we need to teach that history that this was wrong. This was not right. You know what I mean? We understand it happened. We can't change the past, but in order not to repeat the past, we got to understand the past. We got to understand what happened in order not for history to start repeating itself. And history, in some form, in with our new technology thing, is repeating itself in an indirect way that happened back then. And I think, again, I have to go back to what Patrick said. We're still in a form of Jim Crow escrowism that's going on. So we can get people educated. We can get the white community educated on what happened to people of color, this new generation. And I think the changes will start taking place because they're going to feel bad because most of the people here in America, white folks, are good people. They're not bad people. They didn't do it. You know what I mean? But if they understand what happened, then they'll come to the rallying cry because there's not enough black folks to make the necessary changes because we're not in control of Congress. We're not in control of the Senate. You got Mitch McConnell up there. He won't budge.
Yeah.
Ain't no blacks in there.
And he know what's going on is not right. He's from Kentucky, so he understands the history. Mm-hmm. So you got to start with some of these people. And I know they say about the voting process. The voting process is good, but you got to vote the right people in there too. So in order to even vote for the right people, we got to go back and get those people that's running to be educated on what's going on here in America when it comes to the systematic racism that's happening, the structured racism.
You talk about the white people and you're right. And that's why I wanted to start this conversation because I think that white people really have to get in and be part of the solution. And I think one of the first steps that, myself being white, I think that for so long, I looked at race through the white perspective. And sometimes I think through the white perspective, when things are good for you, you don't see anything that is wrong. And one thing that really started to help me, you talk about walk a day in somebody's shoes. I would just really start flipping the script that where you see white, put black, where you see black, put white. And, you just completely flip it over and think that white people, you were brought here on a ship.
There
so
you
many
go.
people died. And for 401 years, you have had some form of oppression on you where you've never truly reached equality in this country that preaches life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. And people are telling you, hey, you're in it, man. Why don't you take advantage of it? They're going, you don't realize, trust me, I'm reaching my hand out and you're pulling it away. And I think for white people, I will tell you, it helped me so much when I started not looking at racism as a white person, but tried to have conversations with African Americans and try to see it from the other side.
Kevin,
well, I tell you,
go ahead, Reggie. We didn't start racism, okay? Black people didn't start racism. We didn't say, oh, we want racism to come around. We're the victims, and we can't end it. We are not going to be able to end this on our own. And if we don't have our white brothers and sisters and those who are in place of governance and those in place of leadership, if they don't come forward and agree that we have a problem and they want to change, we'll be right back here again next year saying the same thing.
Yeah. We need more color in Congress. We need more power to teach the truth. Our true history is the truth. The fact is that they're so afraid of us telling the truth while we have lived the truth, but it's y'all keeping the whites from letting us tell our kids the truth from our ancestors, while at the same time with social media, so many people don't want us to come up that they use scapegoats to distort what we're trying to educate. So our system, even with the educational point, it's so distracted to where y'all have got these kids concentrating on these little itty bitty tests for them to pass instead of letting them learn our whole history. And that's another problem as well.
Yeah. Reggie, you used a key word there, and you said power. And I think that's it. And I think if white people were truly honest, I think there are a lot of white people that are scared of ceding power. And
that's what it
is.
Power and control.
Yeah, and I think white people are afraid to give it up. And I saw that video. I'm sure that y'all did. But the last line in a very powerful video that was out there this week was, you're just lucky that all we want is equality and not revenge.
That's right.
And I think that there are a lot of white people that might know the systemic racism that has gone on for a long time, and there might be a fear of some kind of retribution that might happen, and just even ceding that power. But I think the one thing that I'm starting to understand is that if we do cede power in the right places and everybody truly does have a chance, this country will become greater.
Much better.
It become
Much
greater.
better.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's all we want.
And then if you go back, you got to go back to our history. We wasn't a violent people. We didn't have guns and all that stuff. You know, we protected our own. We might have a few tribal, but most of the people of color, people with a harmonious nature. See, we had much history before we got to America. We had medicine, we had libraries, we had schools, we had universities. We had a lot of stuff that was going on in the continent of Africa and in the Middle East before it even got here. And most of those people, we had a few wars here and there, you know, but it wasn't like those people were violent people. So we still got the same nature. We still got the same characteristics if it's done properly. We ain't looking for a race war. We just looking for equality because we can't change what happened. You know, we ain't really looking for revenge because revenge ain't gonna solve the problem. What's gonna solve the problem is that we have to acknowledge that it's a problem and relinquish some of the power to everybody as a whole. You know what I mean? That's what has to happen. Ain't nobody gonna fight.
Right. So Kevin, you know, one of the things you're saying, what are the first steps? I think more white people need to be educated on the struggle that we've gone through for all these years and understand racism. They have to understand racism. I can't ask you to say, I'm sorry for something that you don't know, that you don't have a grasp or knowledge of, okay? And then I think we need to have small dialogues, and it has to be local. We have to do it local. This can't be we can't wait for some national swoon to come around and say, okay, let's just get on board. No, we have to start locally with conversations local with those people who don't look like us. And I emphasize that those people who don't look like us come to the table and exchange dialogue. Let us teach you what we know, what we feel, what we've been through, and what we have, what we can relate to you. And then ask for you have to listen and then say, do you understand? And then from that point, you take that conversation and go talk with somebody else who looks like you and say, how can I help you understand? And if we can do that and spread that and expand that web out across this county, okay, and do it in a way that we go from top to bottom and people understand it and acknowledge what's going on, that's a great starting point. Because beyond that, we're going to get to the point of policy, legislation, reform, and all those things will come eventually. But if we can't have the dialogue locally and get understanding and get people to understand why we're in this place that we are right now, then we're not getting past go.
Yeah. Right. You got something to say, Ms. Calloway?
No, I don't know why I'm here.
I want to.
I really don't know why I'm here.
Dan, I want to talk to you because I do know why you're here, because you know you've been in this for a while.
Longer than anybody here. I'm 82. Born 5 blocks down the street.
You've
in
seen
1938.
You've seen it where it was, and you've seen it now. So,
but that's what I want to express, and especially
where are we now? Tell me.
Now, if we're living in Palm Beach County, and other than Derrick, he's the only one who's been here all his life. Patrick said, I've been here 17 years. You said you came from somewhere. Yeah. But I thought we were talking about we must start at home. This is our home now. And then go to the state. And then go to the federal. Anytime you got leaders like we have, and I'll say it, the more our president opens his mouth, the more it causes more problems. You don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. But I say this here to you. As long as babies having babies, it decimates a community. Patrick or somebody was saying about the different programs he got. You can take Stony Brook right now. Nobody wouldn't listen to me. Stony Brook was put together in 1970, and we got it in 71. That place should have been toned down 20 years ago. You got as many people all packed on each other, and with the type of leadership you got in there, the kid's not going to learn anything. They're learning bad things, how to hide from the law, so they can get more money if they have the babies, if we have the food stamp. We got to teach people to obey the law. And then the law got to be fair. But most of all, the elected officials got to just stop being elected officials and trying to protect how to win instead of doing their job. Do your job and take your chance. You're going to be elected again. And then Black people got to stop killing each other. Black on Black crime kills me more than anything I know. They are frustrated because they don't have this, they don't have that, and nobody will come and do anything. So the next thing they get in an argument among themselves, they're selling drugs, and they start killing each other. See, that's the elephant in the room. You're not talking about that. But the main thing about it is, I said to, Derrick knows this here. The other day, the people from Channel 12 interviewed me right at my house. I said, you need to have every 3 months, every quarter, a forum out of the 4th station and give it an hour. Okay, let Patrick be the moderator. Get somebody from the law enforcement, from the education field, from the business, somebody who gone to jail and tell the other part of the story. See, if you saw the movie, what it was, Roots, which was one of the greatest movies anybody could see. The old man came over here, they captured him with Kunta Kinte. When he married, he had Kizzy. He said, I gotta tell you the story about the man from the Belonga River and this tribe over there. When she got kids, she told Chicken George. Chicken George went and told his 4 boys, tell the story. See, Derrick know the story because this is the place we used to meet. His father, Herman. We all met there. The Imperial Men Club was fighting, but that's outdated now. Everybody, you saying the right thing. You should think of a piano. What is the piano keyboard? The black keys and the white keys. Until you play the piano with the white keys and the black keys playing together in harmony, and it bell out a beautiful tune, Black people fighting by themselves can't win. White people can't fight like they did all the time. They're not going to win. It's always going to be disturbing. We have to preach and put back in the school system Black history. Now, why is Black history so important? For the little Black kids to learn, just like they learn everything, but most of all for the white kids to learn. If you teach white and Black to get out on the playground, and sports is really the common denominator for everything. Yep. You don't have that much craziness on these teams, just a little. But you learn to teach kids in the school system, mandated. When I was in school, somebody said about this school, I went to Washington Junior High School right on 30th Street from 1st grade to 9th grade. But when I got in the 6th grade and finished, that's when they opened up Roosevelt in 1950. So I went 2 years at UB Kinsey, which was Palm View then. And then I finished 4 years at Roosevelt. Now, my counterparts out here with Burt Reynolds, he caught the bus on the east side of the track. I caught the bus on the west side of the track. Now, we couldn't go on the other side of the track after 7 o'clock at night unless we were working. The Bowes, the Penders, you wouldn't know those things. All those are white people. We didn't fight each other then because we were in the neighborhood. But what happened was they started pushing us too far. And the young generation of people, when we were, the ones now is more dangerous than ever. You can't push these people around. They will fight. So we got to bring in and let it get on the TV. Fight for that hour once every 3 months and talk about what you're talking about. But you think that everybody gonna get on Zoom. They're not gonna get on Zoom, but they'll sure look at the 6 o'clock news, put it on 8 o'clock. They did that before. What was the man at Channel 12? Mark McCormick. He did that. I'm quite sure Patrick remember that. That's what you got to do. Teach the people. And then the law enforcement need to be people friendly. Because everybody's afraid. And they don't talk, everybody got the dark glasses on. They're not blind like me. and they won't get out the car. This is not a walking beat in Palm Beach County, only just in West Palm Beach and bigger places. In Riviera, you can't walk. You got to ride the bicycle of the car, get out, say, my name is this. What's your name, little man? And try to get him a job. And if you can't help him, send him to Patrick. That's what he does. Send him to the Urban League. That is your answer. But the police is always want to be segregated from everybody. They don't believe to show the emotion, and that's what we got to have. And then,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish up, Dan.
No, I think, and Patrick knows this. About 8 years ago, was when we started the Clergy Alliance, and you gave them your place. And when I came down there with all, I'm not a minister, but I brought them all in. Yes, sir. The most important thing in the Black community, I can tell you right now, still is the ministers, the churches, because Black people believe in the religious field, and they believe mostly what a minister said behind that holy desk. It is the gospel, and if the ministers get on the ball, that's who will let us down. I can tell you that right now. But we cannot separate each other. How do I get away from Bucky McGann? How do I get away from David Palladino? How can I get away from Senator Lewis people when he was my godfather? And all these people are white. But I know about the people who was trying to lynch us, burning crosses. My mother had 5 kids. She spread it all over us, trying to protect us. We had our little shotgun. We had our little slingshot. I was reared up into that. But we don't need to do that no more. We need to show brotherhood. And I tell you right now, if everybody act like the piano keyboard, we're gonna win. Now go ahead and keep talking.
That's beautiful stuff. Reggie, you done so much for unity. You work so much in the inner city in West Palm Beach. What are your thoughts on this? And I thought everything Dan said was great and right on point. What are your thoughts on how we move forward and what we need to do?
I feel like everything is involved with the community. That's why community is first with me. And I think that as leading by example as a Black man, you got to use your platform to bring unity. And my focus is bringing unity in the community. So therefore, it's a lot of people don't want to talk, but if you just show them, lead by example, show them the things that you go through, show them that it's a struggle to try to arrange things within the community. And sometimes you get told no a lot. And just to show them that even though you get told no a lot, just still don't give up. Make your connections, network, give back to the community. And for those who haven't been giving back to the community, figure out a way to help them give back to the community and do it hands-on. You got Douglas Lawson, you got Ronnie Felder, who are out there front row with these people every day. And these are amazing people. And I give credit to Riviera Beach and Dan Calloway, and I give credit to even Derrick. Ray Whiteley out there in Boynton Beach. There's a lot of people out there doing a lot in the community. You got Tay doing stuff for the kids, giving kids suits to help them feel good about themselves and carry themselves well. So I think as a radio station, I think we should acknowledge these people on a high prestige level periodically for them to be recognized for what they do in the community, because community is what brings us all together.
That's right. And even I'm gonna interject. We was doing this thing that I thought that was very awesome, trying to develop the relationship with the police. We was doing the peace and the feast in the neighborhood. We did that for several years. Reggie did, and we was bringing the police force in along with the community so that we can interact and we can get to know each other, give the kids an opportunity to be on stage out front, doing some of the things that they do very well, and feed the people and do some stuff so that we all could come together to solve some of these issues. This is the forum that Mr. Calloway was talking about, because during that time, we would have people from each field to come in, from people, politicians, some of the state senators and the local educators, people educators, and everybody coming and talk about athletes, and everybody coming and talk about the state of Black America and how we can improve and things that we need to do. And I think that's what's important now. And now it needs to happen more with more of the Caucasian America coming to these forums, sitting down, getting an understanding, getting a grasp on what we've been going through for all these years. And again, it goes back to education, which is so important that we start looking at some of these pictures of lynchings. Start looking at some of the pictures of us being on stakes. Start looking at some of the dogs that was biting us in the 60s.
Emmett Till.
And look at Emmett Till. Look at the water hoses, the fire hoses in the South. Look at some of these gruesome things that we've been through. Look at some of the slaves that their backs all beat up and things like that. Then you might start having some compassion for the pain that's been in us for so long. That's starting to come to the forefront. You know what I mean? And then, like I say, I don't think Black America wants to fight because we ain't going back to Africa. We're gonna be right here.
No.
So that's not gonna happen. So now, how do we reconcile? Well, go ahead. How do we reconcile one to another?
And to add to the pain, you got so many people talking about they cringe when we express Black Lives Matter. They talk about all lives matter and all that stuff. That's true. But y'all got to understand, when y'all look at those pictures and you see the white folks looking at our ancestors being hung by trees and stuff like that, y'all cringe. But that's in our blood, you know. So it's a little bit different. And like he said before, Derrick said before, we're not out for revenge. We're just asking for y'all to understand our pain and give us the things that we deserve. We just want an opportunity to do better for our people within our community.
Yeah.
That's education, financial, and everything. That's all we want to do. That's all we want. Leave us alone.
Yeah. And all our Black men that's in jail, we need to re-educate our Black boys on how to be true fathers again. That to learn that the streets ain't it. See, a lot of these guys go to the streets based on the oppression that we've been receiving all these years. They think that's the only way out. They don't see no future in going to college. They don't see no future in being a doctor or a lawyer, because before we can even get there, they can't even get the grants. They can't get the loans. And for me, I thank God that he gave me magna fortitude to even build McCray's backyard barbecues. I built most of that out of my pocket because Patrick and all these guys can tell you how many no's I got from the bank. And I've done 14 Super Bowls. And nobody want to take a chance on me. Luckily, but it was somebody that wanted to take a chance on me. And I appreciate him for that. Now we're thriving. But I just had what it took. I think God just blessed me with it. My dad, Mr. Calloway, how I came up to keep going, and not give up on the dream. And a lot of people don't have that. When they see that those roadblocks in the way, they just give up. They quit. But I've never been a quitter, but I faced that same oppression. And we can even go back to where I've been abused by the police. I had to go through police brutality when I was in college. Remember that Mr. Calloway, where the people beat me up and everything, and I wasn't doing that wrong. I just happened to be home from college, and they pulled us over because they thought it was a robbery took place. And I told them, my dad is Herman McCray. I'm in the rob. I'm in college. But they still abused me. They beat me. They put me on the thing. They put guns to my head. They told me they'll blow my brains out. And it was all white guys. Right here in Riviera Beach, and it went all the way to court and everything else.
They put a gun to your daddy's head.
Yeah. So I understand it. I've been here too. I know I'm jumping off subject, but I've been here as a kid when they had the Imperial Men's Club meeting and a phone call come in, and they said, I answered the phone. I think you remember, Mr. Calloway. Yeah. And there was a bomb threat here at my house.
We had to run out of here.
We had to run out of here. And they had to take me. The man said, and I don't want to use the N word, but he said, hey, little nigga, put the dad on the phone. And my mama, I'm like, what? My mama snatched the phone from me. Then she started screaming. My daddy picked the phone up. He said, we finna kill y'all in there and whatnot. And that's how the Klan would do us. Send nooses and everything. So I've been through it. So I understand that hardcore racism. You know what I mean? And I'm still a person, I'm still a loving person. And I'm not gonna let that deter me from people like you, Kevin. When you always been cool. You never heard me even mention those things. And I've been on your show several times. We had a great time and we interact well. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's how most Black Americans are. They want to interact and be a part of what's going on. But we do have a serious story of things that has happened that has scarred us. So if we can get back to educating our little boys, getting them together,
programs,
and setting up stuff, getting them to Patrick, and then Patrick helped raise some of these guys, because we got to develop a new generation of men, of Black men, that's going to change this old culture that's set in our head now, and break the bonds of where we at now. You know, break the generational curse.
Yeah.
That we have to break.
And can I also add this? Now, let's break it down. Dan Calloway has property on his name that's there for the community. And he has a history, and he's well recognized for that. Derrick McCray is in the community. He's the advocate, outspoken, and is a small business. And he's not small no more. He's a business owner. And Patrick, he works in the community, and you can actually bring your problems and your issues to a facility that he runs. And me, as a radio personality, I know it's all about ratings and PPMs, but I put that aside of us because I see what's important is to use my platform to communicate and be the voice for the community. And we did that for Corey Jones. A lot of people ask, why didn't y'all rise for Corey Jones? No, because the respect of his family asked us to do it the right way and be transparent and use the voice of the radio station to describe how Corey really was and a peaceful person. So we did it in a peaceful way. Nobody knows that Kaepernick had kneeled because of Anquan Bolden's cousin, who is Corey Jones.
That's right.
We became the spokesperson for Corey Jones as a radio station. And now everybody's looking after what we've done and how we did it peacefully. Not everybody's following forth of what Florida did.
That's right.
So,
Because
and it all comes down to, look at what Kevin's doing. Kevin's taking his time to let us be a voice for the people that he needs to talk to.
That's right. And see, even when it comes back to the Corey Jones situation, and Reggie D is absolutely right. Because when we heard about it, I went and wrote a handwritten letter to the mayor and to the city manager that I need to sit down and talk to you guys and get this thing started. Because Reggie was up in Palm Beach Gardens. And I demanded a meeting with those guys. Me, Ray Whiteley, and us. And we went in. Reggie D was on the radio. Patrick had the thing going down at the Urban League, and we all came together as one because the people really did want to riot. But based on us holding the people back and pressing for the right results, we then diffused a people that was mad. See, because this could have got ugly here like it did for George Floyd. It could have got ugly right here in Palm Beach Gardens. It could have Gardens had enough sense to sit down with us and talk to us and reason with us and work on some policies and police chief and do some new trainings and do some different things to change the course of. And what they did was they admitted that it was a mistake.
And the city, let me finish this here. What is it? David Ehrenberg, state's attorney. He met with us.
That's right.
And we told him, said, David, whatever you do, make sure it get to the grand jury. Do not sugarcoat this for the big boys, because they would tear Palm Beach County. Now, why is Palm Beach County can't afford riding in all this race relationship? The tourism is where the big bucks come to Palm Beach County. So if you got the hotels, the restaurants, and all this stuff, everybody want to come to Palm Beach County. That means I can go and tell people to go to this hotel, go this place, and get a job. If everybody got a job and feeling good about themselves, they don't have time to do anything. Everybody want to take care of themselves. Now, let me go back and add the last thing to what Derrick was saying. Now, actually, Patrick was the man I nominated to be over that. You remember that, Patrick? Patrick said because of his position, he can't do that, but you got this place, and I'll be behind you all doing what? We got the ministers out there. We went over them. My thing, at the time, I knew that I was the only one that had been in the riots up in New York and in New Jersey.
And then in the riot here.
Well, that's right.
That's right.
Back in '67.
That's right.
Out there in the middle of that.
That's
the
right.
only time they were burning the building down.
That's right.
I said, what we got to do in case we ever have something. We didn't know Corey Jones was going to get killed.
Yeah, because Corey Jones had just performed at the Peace and the Feast like 3 or 4 weeks prior to him getting killed.
That's exactly right. But we were trying to prepare ourselves for this. And then it was supposed to be one of the things you always do, that in case these things happen, these are the routes we are going. Right. And they went down there and they went before all the elected officials. and was telling them all the time, enough is enough. And we got to go back to that. But violence doesn't really do the job. But some people gonna have to do that to wake people up and say, you got to get your, what the man was the man gave the eulogy. Al Sharpton. He said, you got to get your knee off my neck.
My neck.
He highlighted that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but back to that, with the Corey Jones situation, we put together a blueprint for the rest of America.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I think all three of us was on the forefront of creating something that we didn't devastate our neighborhood. And I was telling, when I was up there out front leading the charge, I was saying that we got sisters, brothers, grandmothers, uncles, and aunties, and people working in Palm Beach Gardens. They need their job. Right. So why not? We don't want to tear all that up for them not to be home economically depressed. So we need to just follow this thing, and we need to stand up to the letter of the law and fight the good fight of faith. And we got to put the hammer down in a way that they understand that if you don't do this, then how are we going to hold these people back?
Yeah. Kevin, one to go back to Corey Jones. This is a place that needs to be documented what the Banks family did during that period.
Right.
Yeah. It was exemplary across the whole spectrum of time, not just a week, a month, but years that they went through and
patience
and were patient and preached nonviolence. They held seminars, they held talks, they held wherever you could be heard to hear their plea. They were there. The grandfather, the father, the uncle, the aunts, they were all there. And we were constantly talking with them to say, how can we support you? But they led that effort of nonviolence. Yes, and everything that happened here. Yeah. And that family needs to be documented.
That's true. You got
how the process works.
And you can't leave out the Jones and the Banks family.
The Jones and the Banks, right.
Yeah. Well, you gotta go both sides. Well, what Patrick is saying, it started with Sylvester. The
absolutely.
Bishop, and he 45 years ago, he was my toughest competition on the Gulf Coast. All you do is say, who are your toughest? He's been a peacemaker ever since I've known him. I've known him for 60 years. But that was you're right, Patrick. It was the old man and Sheila that they listened and they asked questions. But you see, that's what you still got to teach the masses. Right. See, one thing when something like this come up, we need to go back and make sure the schools, I don't care if the other people in the state, put it in the Palm Beach County School, that we need to have Black history. See, Black history is you don't have Black history anymore. They don't teach Black history no more. And it's more important that not only that for Black kids, but it's really important for the white kids to understand where we started from and how we've been manhandled.
Dan, one of the reasons that we see so many young people involved in this protest move right now is because they got Black history in college.
Right.
Okay? They got Black history when they got to college, and more white kids and Black kids were exposed to it, and they understand the history and the violence and the discrimination and the oppression that has been happening all these hundreds of years. And they the ones who you see out protesting now, they're saying, oh, hell no, this is enough. This is way over the top now because they understand the issue.
Right.
Okay. They understand the issue. But I agree with you. Let's bring it down to high school now because it's in our colleges, but we need to bring it down to high school so the masses can be exposed.
See, because actually the reason why you have to do that, because a lot of people can't go to college.
Right.
They go right into the army, to the military, some of them go right into a job or trade school. They need, I can tell you right now, there's a man, my last teacher is still alive. He's 92 years of age. S. Bruce McDonald.
My godfather.
And one of his employees isn't one of the Miss McDonald's daughters still working for you? Yes. See, Mr. McDonald taught us in sociology in 54 and 55. When he first started teaching was in 54. And He taught us about that. The things that we need to learn. Maybe about a year ago, the lady was 91 years of age who said that Emmett Till made a pass at her. She died at 91. But before she died, she told the truth. She said, I got to get it off my heart because I've been carrying this burden. That boy died because I told a lie.
That's right.
Now, she did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, my thing is this, I'm going to say this and I'm kind of back up, but if truth is being told and it's being taught correctly, I think then people will get the right understanding, and we've always had lies and this and that, and then even go to the blue-eyed, long-haired Jesus.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's been one of the biggest misconceptions ever created. Mm-hmm. Because now that keeps the race above, because you think Jesus was white. Jesus was not a white man. But out here in America, he was a blue-eyed, long hair,
and no blue eyes.
So those things. So I'm just using that as an example of all the lies that have been taught, and people believe those lies. It become now that the lies become truth to some people.
Yeah, so and they got to stop. Yeah, as a white guy, I look at all the lies that I have been fed and how, in a sense, they have propped me up going through white society to believe certain things. And that's why I think is the Black community understands how the white community has been conditioned from birth to see things a certain way. All these subtleties that that somebody puts them in front of us. I'm a middle-aged white man, and now I'm seeing some of these realities for the first time in my entire life, that I'm starting to see the fallacies and the lies and the conditioning that was even going into my head from a very young age through my education and where I came up through from the shows that I watched and what you believe. And you become conditioned. And when we're aware of the conditioning that our society has put us through, and we start to understand what the lies are, and we can start to see the truth, then hopefully we can all come together to agree that this is not the place, that America is not where it needs to be. And then we can start talking about the next step. And that is, how do we make America, for the first time ever in its history, the right America?
Right. And it's going to start local, Kevin. It's going to start local. It's going to start from our friends and neighbors to come together.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because look, nobody wants failure at any level, at any point in business and education and anywhere in our economy. Nobody wants failure. Everybody wants success, but not at the expense of someone else.
That is true.
Okay, not at the expense of someone else because they don't look like you.
That is true.
Okay, and once we get past that, then we can all join together and be together and understand each other. But we cannot have someone put their knee on our throat and say, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's got to be a group effort. Yeah, it's got to be a group effort. Well, I tell you what, I think this is another great first step, and I think that this is a conversation that we need to all have again and continue to have.
That is true.
Try to bring more people into the circle. So I hope this is the first of many. And I just want to thank all you guys for a real powerful talk today. Dan, thank you for coming in here and just lending some of your expertise and what you have seen. Derrick, thank you so much. Reggie, I appreciate it. Patrick,
thank you.
We're going to continue to get the information out there and have more conversations. And really, you're right. Let's do this in South Florida. And that's why this thing is called South Florida United, because it does. It starts right here. And there's no reason why we can't be the model for Florida, America, and the world.
For the country. Let's do it. Let's show everybody how we come together.
Yeah, because we already got one big notch on our belt with the Corey Jones situation on how to handle that.
Yeah.
And I want to applaud also the Floyd family too for how they've been handling this major situation with Grace
under pressure.
And doing the next right thing, and ain't nothing perfect, but trying to be as close to perfect as they can be and showing dignity. And that says a lot about who we are as a people. You know what I mean? And so that's really important. So I want to give them a shout out.
Well, I need to say this here to either Patrick or Kevin or whomever is in charge. You have to push and contact the TV, that media there, because what you're doing right here now, you should do it for an hour there for everybody. That's a learning thing. And then to see a lot of my white friends, and I got a lot of white friends that because I came out of the athletic field, and they will help, but it comes a time when you need to go in front of the TV where everybody, I'm not putting down the radio, but people, one thing, if it's in prime time or 8 o'clock, and I know coming, if Patrick from the Urban League get behind that and endorse that, and with the radio media, they'll do that.
Yeah, my friend, I will go where they will put me. So I'm sure Reggie's the same way. So you put us on the camera, we're happy.
I hear you, Dan, loud and clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then
Yes, sir.
we'll set something up, with that, because that's important. But I think the first step is this podcast, because you got almost 200,000 viewers watching this right now.
We hit 130,000 people check this out last
Right.
week's discussion. So
Right.
yeah, there are numbers
So,
here, and hopefully
some good numbers.
I want to
And-
encourage people to share this too. So if you have this, you have the ability to share this to other people, and that's a way to get this around super fast. You can take this discussion that we had today. You can continue to email me, mail at kvjshow.com, and we'll bring some more stuff in. So I just want to say thank you, gentlemen, so much. It was great talking to you, and we'll definitely
Thank you, Kevin.
very soon.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Take care. We'll talk soon.